This red bucket represents our general fund. This blue bucket represents our transportation fund. This blue bucket, our capital projects fund. This blue bucket, our debt service fund. This blue bucket, bus replacement fund. And I've got to make sure that I get this one back tomorrow morning to the office. This is our coffee maker. But this is our rainy day fund. I think before we begin to understand a referendum, we need to understand or have a little bit of understanding about these funds, because this is how we operate a school financially. First, let's talk about this red bucket. This red bucket for Elkhart Community Schools is a fund that has about $84 million in it. This fund, beginning in 2008, has been funded by sales tax. If you'll recall, back in 2008, we made a little change. And we said we're going to fund school corporations, their general fund, by increasing our sales tax to 7%. Now, for Elkhart Community Schools, what this represents, this fund, is people. Now, I borrowed this for my son, Eric. These are his Army men. But I'm doing it for a purpose. Because in this fund, it's all about the people. Whether those are teachers, whether those are paraprofessionals, whether those are school nurses, whether those are administrators, whether those are counselors. In fact, 95% of this fund is tied up in the people and their benefits. 95% of this fund, the general fund, tied up into people and benefits. In 2009, I believe, in December of 2009, our former superintendent, Mark, now got a letter, as did every superintendent in the state of Indiana. And the governor basically said, Mark, we know what you have budgeted and we know what we have approved, but we're going to take $3.5 million out of your general fund. And that occurred. It just didn't occur to Elkhart Community Schools. It occurred in some form or fashion to every district throughout the state of Indiana. Now also, if you remember, in 2011, they found $300 million. And I don't know, Mark, did you ever get any of that 3.5 back?
Not a dime.
Haven't seen a dime of it. So we're here to talk about a referendum, but what we're not talking about tonight is the general fund, because this referendum is not about the general fund. It's about these blue buckets. So I'm going to take the general fund and put it right over here. Because our conversation tonight is really about these blue buckets. First, it's about the transportation fund. Now, when you think of transportation, you usually think of this. Think of a school bus. Well, the transportation fund doesn't buy these. What the transportation fund does, it pays for bus drivers. It pays for mechanics. It pays for administrators. It pays for those people when you call in and you say, hey, I'm going to leave my child with the babysitter today, and tomorrow you're going to pick that child up from my house, and then on Thursday back to the babysitter. It pays for those kind of people as well. In Elkhart Community Schools, we levy about $7 million to our taxpayers in this fund. We levy about $7 million to take care of our transportation needs in this fund. But it's not about buses. That goes into bus replacement. This fund buys these. That's not a magic trick, I actually had another one in there. It actually pays for school buses. Elkhart Community Schools levies about $1 million to buy new buses. This fund, the Capital Projects Fund, you can't see this, and my son, when he finds this out, he's really going to be ticked off at me. I borrowed his Army men, school buses, and his Legos, because this represents a schoolhouse. And Capital Projects pays for the roof on this schoolhouse. It pays for the heating and cooling in this school. It pays for the tables that you're sitting at. It pays for computers, technology. Capital projects, that's about a $10 million levy for us. This fourth blue bucket is our debt service. This is our mortgage. Debt service is like our mortgage. Over the course of time, we've built buildings. And when we built those buildings, we didn't have the cash on hand to pay for them right then and there. School corporations act much like you do. They have to borrow money. And for most school corporations, and Elkhart Community Schools is no exception, try to pay that back in a timely manner. And for schools, that's about 15 to 20 years that we try to pay that back in. These blue buckets, since 2008, have seen a loss of revenue of $16.6 million in these blue buckets. Last year alone, in Elkhart Community Schools, these blue buckets lost $5.2 million just last year alone. Best case scenario, we believe, for Elkhart Community Schools in 2014, best case scenario is that our loss only increases by 10%. Our worst case scenario is it's 25%. And we should know maybe by the end of this month what that actual loss looks like. So it very well could be that in 2014, the losses to these blue buckets, these funds, could be over $6 million. The debt service, just like your mortgage, we have to pay it back. We don't pay it back, what do they do to you? They foreclose on you. Well, if we don't pay it back, our bond rating is affected. I think there's actually a clause in state law that says if we don't pay that back, or we don't have the money to pay that back, we come over here to the general fund, and we take money out of the general fund to pay it off. So we have to absorb that $5.2 million loss as we had last year in these three buckets. And you've started to see some of the effects of that, and I think you have been seeing the effects of that since tax cap legislation came about in the state of Indiana. And don't get me wrong here tonight. I'm not here. I'm a taxpayer just like you. My taxes are lower because of tax caps. It's like every homeowner in this room. I don't think that when we put it in the Constitution, we believed that we would have the Great Recession of 2008. Tax caps, 5.2 here, and so what we've done, we've pulled some of these off the road. We started last year with 113, we're down, we went to 99, but we're back up to 100. The results you know already. We have children that walk 2 miles to school, and that's 2 miles as the crow flies. We have some students, and I'm not talking about hundreds of students, but we have some students that ride the bus for more than an hour. In our school corporation, if you want a field trip, you have to find somebody to pay for it because the school does not sponsor school field trips anymore. You have to go maybe write a grant, and we've been doing that. Or you have to have a strong PTO or a PTA organization. Some other things that are happening. Our athletic programs, who take buses to go travel to sporting events, They reimburse us for driver cost and for fuel cost. Our band and orchestra programs are being geared up to start paying as well. They haven't been, but they've been told, be ready. For this fund, what we're looking for is strong buildings, safe buildings, secure buildings. But since 2008, we've been doing what a lot of folks have been doing. If you've been putting money back for a roof, and I believe this school here, in the referendum, would get a new roof if we're successful. But what do you do if you're ready to put a roof on your home and you have a winter like we've done and you've blown your furnace out? Well, you take the money that you had put away or put aside for your roof to put in a furnace. So since 2008, and since we have been affected by tax caps, that's what the school corporation has been doing. They've been prioritizing. For bus replacement, we didn't buy a school bus in 2013. We didn't buy a school bus. We're not planning on buying a school bus in 2014. In fact, we took some of the money that we levied and we put it into the rainy day fund in 2013. Now let's talk about the rainy day fund just real quick. Rainy day fund for Elkhart Community Schools is our savings account. I don't know if rainy day is the right name for it, given that we had a lot of snow. It should be snow day. We have $9 million in here. $9 million. You might say, well, Rob, why are we not dipping in to the rainy day fund? Well, let me give you two things. One, if we have a board meeting, we have 2 board meetings a month. Our claims, or what we pay out in a board meeting, in one of those board meetings, can be anywhere between $5 and $10 million. Understand what we're funding here. We're funding a small city. We have over 12,000 students. We have over 1,800 employees. We have 21 buildings. So what does it end up looking like for us? Anybody remember what I said we levied here? $7 million. We only had 5 to spend. This is a $10 million levy. We have less than 8 to spend. $1 million levy. We've got about 700,000. Maybe that's a little high. Maybe about 600,000. We took that money and we put it right here into rainy day. So we took that $5.2 million loss and divided it up here. This chart represents that loss and what it's looked like. You can see in 2008, all the way down to 2013 at 5.26. And you've heard me estimate that we're hoping that that stays in 2014 under $6 million. So that's a real quick lesson in school funding.